Welcome to the Stressless Eating Podcast, where we help diet-obsessed and food-crazed women break themselves out of the food and body prison, end the dieting madness, and take control of their health for good. I'm your host, Leanne Ellington, and this podcast is about answering one question. How can you heal your relationship with food and your body and take a practical approach to this whole self-love journey, but without all that restriction, obsession, and shame, and without needing years of therapy to do so? If you want to know the answer, you're in the right place. All this information is 100% free, so please subscribe to and review our podcast. All right. Hello. We are here today for a very special interview. I have one of the most influential people in my life, and I am unapologetically saying that. I've had some majorly influential people in my life, and I am just so grateful to have the beautiful Jessie Torres here on our podcast today. So first of all, hello, Jessie.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here, Leanne. I absolutely adore you.
Oh, same to you. So Jessie and I'll share how we got connected, but a few years ago, I think about 3 years ago now, I was part of a business mentorship program, and she was one of my mentors in that capacity. And then just the influence and impact that she had on my life in that capacity, I was like, I need this kind of, wisdom and love and truth in my personal life. And so just the amount of time and, just the context of everything really is so relevant to this podcast. And indirectly, her influence on me has really helped me become the version of myself that I am and that I needed to be to launch this podcast. And I'll share that with you all in a moment. But you'll see that the title of this episode is called Redefining Beauty, because one of my biggest breakthroughs in my personal life happened just a couple of years ago when I realized that, after I lost all this weight and made over my life and stepped into confidence in so many areas of my life, I never passed through the feeling and the identity of beauty and feeling beautiful. And I had, unbeknownst to me, this kind of like dirty association, if you want to call it that, or a negative association with beauty. I thought it was either dangerous or like not enough. Like, I don't want to just be beautiful. I want to be smart. I want to be all these things. Or I thought it was superficial or catty or vain or whatever was going through my mind. And it was a really important thing for me to own. And you've heard me say it, especially on the beauty pageant episode, of that, beauty really is a being and a feeling and not a seeing. But I needed to have that breakdown to breakthrough moment that I had with Jessie, actually, to really even discover that. So before we get into the meat of this episode, I would love for you to just share with us a little bit about yourself. Share with us who you are and what has created you to become the most amazing human, says me. A lot of people that I know too. But anyways, what has, what's shaped you into the person that you are today?
Oh my goodness.
And who are you?
A simple answer would be the journey, right? So having had the journey that I've had, so I came from, an abusive background with my father since, my first memory. And so my first 18 years was that, not understanding. It's where I started to label myself as someone who was in shame, and not from an understanding of shame, but from a living in it. I didn't know to identify it then. But then after that, I stepped right into, in order to escape my father's clutches, right into a marriage at 18 for another 18 years. And that was very verbally, emotionally, mentally abusive, because if I was living in that sense of shame, I brought it into the relationship. So I found somebody that was going to make my story true. And so from that, I had 3 kids, and I had gotten to a place in my journey where a lot of things had happened, including a loss of my brother. My brother was murdered, absolutely senselessly. And so navigating all of that, but getting to a place in that 18th and a half year of my marriage where the only option at this state was somebody to please blow the red light. I was apathetic. I had reached a numb point. I did not want to get divorced. I did not believe in it. That was just, I was going to die in this marriage. And I believe that I did. I believed that I died in every way that a woman could die. And I was just a physical body walking, hoping somebody would blow the red lights because I couldn't take my own life because of my kids. And so they really are what kept me alive. And then honestly, what really triggered the transformation was, and why I'm so adamant about it, is an act of kindness. We really don't understand sometimes the power that we have as human beings to serve each other. And these people will never know the kind of impact they had in my life. But what I knew to be true was that my father told me, people always want to take advantage of you. So, they always want to get in your pants. That's what he would say to me. So don't trust anybody. So, which is what he was doing, right? And then my ex-husband was like, Jessie, people subconsciously want to break up a good thing. So don't talk about our marriage to anybody, right? And so I was just like always looking. I was always in hypervigilance. I was always believing, people were, out to get me in some way or another. And so when these people acted kind, it short-circuited me, right? It literally sparked something that I didn't understand. I didn't know to call it kindness. All I knew was they were being kind to me and they didn't want anything from me. They were just honoring me. And I was like, wait, what? Like, what is this? I don't understand. And in that moment, it awoke something in me that said, if this feeling is available, life is worth living.
Wow.
And that's when it triggered me to ask for a divorce and to get out of this very abusive relationship. And from there, just kind of fast tracking it, it was very, very painful because obviously he was very filled with rage and upset. And I had to pick myself up. It was the only thing left. I would cry, pick up the pieces, get back to trying to find a place for my kids and I to live. And what it did, though, is awoke a hunger in me to understand human beings. I was like an insatiable hunger to understand why my dad did what he did, why my mom ignored me at 16, why my husband did what he did, and why I allowed it. And I started to read. I started to pick up books. I would go to workshops, seminars, whatever I had to do, because I was so terrified that I knew I had to do something that put me in a place of challenge and a little bit of discomfort or a lot of discomfort, but because I knew I had to grow. And from that journey, I've had a spiritual journey. I've worked so deeply with myself to understand who we are as human beings and how the limitation to any human being is only the belief. And the belief is created from our pain, from the things that we've suffered. And all we do when we grow up is try to peel back those layers to find that we were the divine perfection we always were. So my outcome in life is to help awaken that spirit, to unleash your potential. And I always say, don't be stingy with your essence, right? Your essence is the beauty, the magnificence of who you are. And that never changed from the moment you took your first breath. So my journey in life is to help you recognize the journey and finding the beauty and the gifts, which is the champion in the arena, which was you, and falling back in love with her.
Wow. Mic drop. So good. Just a couple of things. One of the things that you said, you're like, I was looking for people to make my story true. And that is such a powerful statement. So I want us to talk about that, but also just kind of crossing over into this idea of beliefs. All of us, well, first of all, we're all walking around with some sort of limiting beliefs. It doesn't matter how, high or deep in our journey we get, like we are always having them and creating them and finding them, and I believe it's our job to search for them and make them over and recreate, the ones that would serve us. But that being said, the women that are listening to this right now, have a lot of beliefs about their circumstances, that this is who they are. This is how they're always going to be, a weak-willed sabotager, that they have a food problem, a willpower problem, all of that, but also beliefs about who they are. Like, oh, this is just who I am in terms of this is what I'm always going to be overweight, or I'm always going to, look this way, feel this way, never deserve this, be too much of this, not enough of that, like all of these beliefs, right? So what would you share? Because a lot of the frameworks that I use to this day about beliefs have just been totally, supplemented by what I learned through you. And it's been just, transformational. So talking about this idea of beliefs and really what you just said, like making my story true about like the narrative that we are all carrying around and walking through and looking at through the lens of every single day. What would you say about that narrative and the beliefs that create our reality?
Sure. Well, first of all, we need to understand that we as human beings are meaning making machines, right? We make meaning about everything. And we don't know. We're not handed a rule book of how to human, right? We just kind of go. And then the first time somebody takes our lunchbox in kindergarten, we anchor not enoughness. Why did they take my lunchbox? Why don't they like me? Why don't they treat me like everybody else or whatever? And we start to stack these meanings because that's just what we do as human beings. Or sometimes you have an abusive parent. Like for me, I glorified my dad. Like I thought I was special. I thought, because these are my parents. They're the ones that are going to show me how to walk, how to talk, how to, be. And so when this was happening, I didn't understand that there was wrong in it until I got to a certain age, right? But in that moment when I realized this is not comfortable and this is not okay, I wrapped shame around my identity. So you talk about, this is the way I am, that I would really caution that whatever you put after I am, you're stacking and building your identity. And what's important is to be consciously aware of doing that. So if you say, I am somebody who just, I just love food and I'm just the kind of person that's always going to be a foodie and I'm always going to be, and you start doing that, you are writing the script, right? Because your subconscious is listening. It's paying attention. So the question is, you could be a foodie, but what do you really want? And really get clear with that. And then create the story of your identity about what you want, because both are available. I could say, it was really sad that I had to build traps to warn me when my father was coming into my room. And that's just horrible to think that a little girl had to create these traps. It never stopped him, but somehow it made me feel better. Or I can say, I was massively creative and I got really resourceful with my traps and I built this muscle, right? So both stories are true. Both stories are available. Does it suck I had to build the traps? Sure. But does that fuel my spirit or does that limit my spirit? Does it doesn't make my dad's behavior okay. It's not about that. It's about he behaved. I made meaning about my divinity and my beauty, right? So in that moment, we don't know better. But what we do after the fact, if you can go back in your journey and start to recognize when you started to create the I am statements, right? So I am shame girl. I was something, I was filthy. I am damaged goods. Nobody's ever going to want me. This was my story. It was my chant, because society embeds a lot of things in us unknowingly. We don't know we're being programmed, right? And so it's just like everybody knows that a girl that's abused this way is, that's kind of icky. Ooh, I don't want to, And so I owned that belief. And it just wasn't true. I judged my own inner child, my own little girl. Why didn't you fight harder? Why didn't you spit? Why didn't you scream? Why didn't you poke his eye? Like literally, I grew up and thought I was all smart. And all I did was judge myself even more versus finding the gifts of the journey. What else was true? What else was true? There was a brave little girl who still got up the next day. There was a little girl that showed up and still chose to play with her brother and to still find joy, even though this was going on. I want to pull those truths because in our journey, we are developing muscle and we're developing, learning. So we could either learn what depletes us and takes away our divinity, or we can learn the beauty and the gifts within it, because sometimes we don't know what we've got until our knees hit the floor. Right. And so part of the journey was maybe my contract with God and the universe, that I said, I choose this man to be my father and I choose this man to be, my husband, because they're going to be my greatest teachers for me to awaken that shame is a cosmic joke. That's what I call it. Right. It's the thing that's made up. I'm something to be ashamed of based on what? Based on who? Right. Who wrote the rules of what I get to decide is divine about who I am? Yeah. I do. Yeah. We do.
Yeah, I love that. And it's just really giving that platform to the concept of like, you get to choose whoever you say you are based on the words that you choose, based on your beliefs. And one of the things that, ever since I've known you, just you've always so bravely and courageously shared your journey of, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, all of that. And one of the things that I know happened in between was you had to choose the narrative where you were not a victim. Where, like you said, like, what if those were my teachers? Like, what if that was divinely just integrated into my life so that I could become who I needed to become, to realize that shame was the toxic joke? Because I'll tell you, from somebody who learned a lot more about shame from you, I am so grateful that you did the deep dive on shame for yourself, because it was a gift to me. So I can only imagine. And I know a lot of the people you've influenced with that. But that being said, like, I can see the fruits of that, but at one point in time, you had to choose, like, no, I'm not a victim. So can you speak to that? Because a victim, it can be sneaky and insidious. It's not always like actually being a victim. Sometimes we can just fall into this narrative that we're a victim to our circumstances and that we don't have a choice and that life is happening to us and circumstances are just happening to us. So, and I think that's a lot of what I had to overcome with my own victim story around my body of like, no, this is just, this is happening to me. This is how my life is. I'm always going to be addicted to sugar, whatever it is for us. We all have our own victim story. So can you just speak to that specifically about like a victim narrative and how to be on the lookout for it and how to shift that?
Sure. Let's just call it real, right? So was I a victim of my father's behavior? Sure. Yeah, that's true. But what we do is we take that story and now it becomes an identity of who we think we are, which now attracts experiences and people in our lives that now anchor that truth even more. So we have to be mindful, right? So I can't say, well, it was my fault that my dad did that, so I'm not a victim, right? But what I become a victim of is the story I write because of what happened to me. Right. And I believe that when we do go through pain or things happen to us, we write what I call heart armor. Right. We start to build armor around our hearts because we've been hurt. And I don't want to be hurt. Oh, my God, I write a story. Men are out to get me. Men are out to hurt me. They're only there to abuse me. Right. So it's all this armor when my soul just wants to love. Right. It just wants to love, but it's scared. And so we have to be consciously aware that a lot of times when we come out, and what got me out of victim story and survival, out of victim story into thriving was in that place of survival. I didn't have a choice. Like, I didn't have time to focus on my victimization. I had to find a way. I had to find a way for my kids and I to have somewhere to live. I had to find a way for me to actually learn how I'm going to thrive in this life. Because at 38 years old, back then, I didn't even know how to leave my own city. I was so kept. I had to buy a Thomas guide. I think MapQuest was just starting to come out. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I was in a place of survival. So I couldn't focus on being a victim because I had to find a way to thrive. I had 3 kids that I was caring for. I had myself that I'm choosing to live. How am I going to live this life? I don't know what to do. I don't know who I am. I didn't even know what my favorite food was. I know my family didn't know me. And so from that place, what I want you guys to get is that in those moments when we're in, let's say, the arena of our life, and we're in survival, or we're living our lives from a having to prove, I'm going to show everybody, right? It's great because you built muscle, right? So if God could whisper back in the day when I was suffering, or when you were all suffering, or when you had a really profound moment in your life that really hurt you, if God could whisper and he could say, you know what? I know this really sucks right now, but if you knew what I have in store for you, you would understand, Jessie, why I need you to build creativity right now, why I need you to be resourceful, because I need you to have this muscle. Because when you get divorced, you're not going to have a clue, and you're going to need to access these muscles, right, that I'm helping you build today. So we don't get to hear the voice. We just get to trust. We get to trust in our strength. But the important keynote, the fight is over. The training is done. You can get out of the arena Because if you take the wins from the journey and you anchor the identity of the beautiful, resilient, strong, powerful goddess that was in the arena and pull all the beauty from it, you don't have to be in the fight anymore. Yeah. It's like the muscle's been built. You got the memo. You don't have to consistently be in there. And then the last thing, in order to stay out of victimhood, you got to throw away the gavel. There's a gavel and a judge in your head that's consistently judging everything you do. And so what starts to happen is, why is this happening to me, right? Questions start to stack that aren't always empowering. Why? My question was, what's wrong with me, right? Every single time something didn't work out, what's wrong with me? Why can't I figure this out? And like we say, ask a stupid question, you get a stupid answer. and it's like, all that does is invite that disempowered part of me to answer me. What's wrong with you, Jessie? Oh, let me tell you. You always screw up. You never get it right. You don't, and then boom, 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 and it takes us out of our beauty.
Absolutely.
Our beauty is the magnificence and the power of the person that was in the arena. That's who we are. We were just being chiseled, right? And now we're here, and now we get to make a conscious decision of what we do with what we learned. But you have to get the learn. You have to get the teaching, because I don't believe God wastes the pain. I believe we do if we choose to.
Absolutely.
So if you're able to go back and get that power, you won't be a victim ever again, because you'll find how powerful you really are. You always have that choice.
Again, it is a choice. And that's where the work is like when something got fired and wired, or something got anchored, it happened without us consciously being aware of it. And we have to consciously choose to anchor the new,
That's
and
right.
So many little light bulbs are going off that I want to ask you about, of things I'm like, oh, I want to ask her about that. But I'm going to just stick with a couple of things. So notice I didn't say just one.
It's
okay. So coming back to this idea of toxic shame, there's a couple things I want to touch on that. So first of all, this idea that whether or not we're choosing a new narrative, the old narrative is not benign. Like energy, or every feeling and emotion has an energy. It's physical and metaphysical. But one of the big things that you taught me about was of the magnitude of the emotional scale and how it affects our physiology. So I'd love for you to talk about that, but also just to kind of speak to something that kind of like a testimony about you is, when we were working together, we were talking about, you one of the things you said is like, how would you describe what you do for women and like how you help women? And I was sharing, and you asked me a couple questions, and I honestly don't remember the exact questions that got me there. But one of the realizations I had was that because I had not been in the trenches, so to speak, of my own food and body and shame prison, I, by extension, was a little bit disconnected from the shame and the pain of all the women that need me. Specifically, like you ladies that are listening to this, I love you, but unfortunately I didn't know what I didn't know, and I got disconnected. And one of the best things that ever happened, and it's transformed my life. It's transformed, like, ask any of my clients now, they'll be like, wow, she's in it, she knows it. And I've just made that promise to God, never, ever, ever to forget again, because I see how powerful it is. But I got disconnected from the pain and the shame of the women that are still in that prison. And when I got connected to that again, I mean, the tears, I revisited my own shame. It's almost like I broke my own heart again to go through to experience that. But it was the best thing that could have ever happened. I really believe that a lot of the content on this podcast is a direct reflection of that. Like, I get it again, and I'll never forget. So just to speak to that, but the power of, part of it is like realizing what shame is, what it isn't, what it does, the offshoots of it, the voices of shame, all that. But also understanding it, because shame isn't logical when you're in it, and so giving some of that logic and reason, like a little bit of the science behind how your emotions work, and just helping people see that this is, some people think like, oh, that's not like my top 10 priority right now. Like, oh, it's just shame, but it's like, no, like the power of what happens when you just eradicate it from your way of being. And you might float through it, but it's not where you live any longer, but just becoming aware of how it actually works, how it affects us. Can you just kind of speak to that?
Yeah, there's a lot in there. If we look at what's called the omega levels of consciousness, we have frequencies that emit from the rhythm of our heart. right? Our heart is a beat. It's emitting, like they use a stethoscope to listen, right? Because it's emitting a frequency that, is heard by the doctors or whatever. So if you have a heart monitor on your heart, in the moment of shame or frustration or sadness or any depleting emotion, the rhythm of your heart is actually chaotic. Okay. When you're in expansion or love or compassion or gratitude, the rhythm of your heart is what we call coherent. And now it has effective communication with your mind, and you have a beautiful flow of wisdom and all kinds of beauty. Now, the contracted part in shame, on the omega levels of consciousness, the frequency is the lowest on the scale. Okay. Love is at 500. Fear is at 100. Shame is at 20. That's the lowest. That's what spirals you into depression. It spirals you into making bad decisions because it just really embodies, it's a weighted energy. And the other thing that's super important about shame is that it lives in secrecy. Right? It's shameful to talk about shame, right? I don't want to admit, because then, oh my God, I'm something to be ashamed of if I say that I'm in shame. And it's like the craziest thing. And right now,
about our shame.
Yeah, exactly. And what we really need to be careful about right now is that society, we start to own, right, this identity of like, everything's Googleable. We have so much information out there. So, let me Google how to get out of shame. Oh, here's some things. Okay, I'll do these steps. And then we do the steps, and then something happens. We feel shame again. And then we shame ourselves deeper because now I know better.
Right.
I read the book. I did the thing. And so it's really, really important that we pay attention to that. On a physical level, your heart in that chaotic vibration is literally causing your body to be in fight or flight. Yeah. When we talk about weight loss, when we talk about disease, it's not like weight loss is not happening if you're in a constant contracted state, right? Because your body's in fight or flight. It's needing to supply extra energy because it thinks the bear is coming. Right. So your cortisol levels are skyrocketing, and now you're in depletion mode. In depletion mode, ladies, you shut the door to universal intelligence, God, whatever your belief is. All of a sudden, there's no understanding of why you can't get resourceful, why you can't get into your power. You're just kind of in this weighted energy. So check in with your body. What's going on when you find yourself in a disempowered belief? Stand up, shake it off. Like there's something physical you can do immediately, and then check in, breathe. Breath is highly important and underrated. Oh, yeah. Okay. And so it's super, super important to reconnect to that space in your heart, calm your heart down, and find what you're grateful for to navigate out of it. But what you said about forgetting, I think is super important, because what happens is as we navigate our journey and we kind of jump out of the arena a bit and we're learning and we're growing and we're buying books and we're whatever, like we start to say, oh, I don't ever want to go back there. I like this new place that I found, but here's what's important. If you have this feeling that says, I don't ever want to go back to that woman because, oh my God, she made stupid mistakes and and all these things, you are in judgment of the you of the past. Yeah. And if you are in judgment about any part of your beauty, you judge others.
Absolutely.
Because you cannot give what you don't own. And what you find when you surrender the judge, when you surrender the shame, and like you, I didn't know to call it shame back then. I had to do my own process of that, because now I see everybody through the eyes of love. I'm like, how do you not see how beautiful you are? Right? And I had to stop and go, well, wait a minute, Jessie, you didn't back then. You didn't even have language around it. You just knew you wanted to die. That's all you knew. And in survival, I found a way out to help me start to learn, oh, there's this thing I did. That's not true. And I started to create doubt in it. And I started to put things in my path that challenged me so that I could show myself that I was strong, that I could show myself that I was courageous. And all of a sudden, I started to marry what I was creating with what else was going on in my past, which was a courageous little girl that was navigating a very painful upbringing. So in that, we start to get rid of shame. We start to throw it out. It is a cosmic joke. It is not real, right? Tim McGraw wrote a great song called Who Are They? And I love it because it says, hey, don't go outside without your coat. They say you'll get sick, right? Don't do this, or they say, and the whole song is, who are they? Who are they? Who's writing the book about your divinity, about your beauty, about who you think you are?
So good. So good. Love it. Yeah, and a perfect segue into this concept of beauty. Beauty is, multi-billion dollar industry, and everyone grows up with a certain perception of what beauty is. For me, I thought that skinny was beautiful when I was younger. And then when I got to my version of skinny, I still didn't feel beautiful. And I realized that something else was going on inside. And then even when I went and did all this self-image work and self-worth work and all of that, I didn't even know that beauty was, or feeling beautiful was something to even pass through and get acquainted with, and that it is a feeling. Mm-hmm. Just like I talk about how fat is not a feeling, but it's like society has made it a feeling. Beauty, we think of it as this external thing. Like when we look a certain way, when we have a certain lifestyle, when we appear to the outside a certain way, to the theys, the who are theys, then we'll feel it. But it's like, no, ladies. And this is what I say about weight loss too. Like losing weight, if you feel the way that you feel right now, it doesn't just go away when you lose the weight, right? Beauty is this thing too. And I'm calling it a thing because I want to make it a thing that people actually take a look at and explore. I am still in the midst of that, and I think I always will be. Like, I think all of this stuff, it's just this lifelong mastery. Like you just get new levels of awareness and a new level of consciousness and what you have the power to shift and all of that and what you choose to shift. But for me, I did an entire episode about the beauty pageant and how if you missed that, we'll put it in the show notes. I basically got double dog dared to do a beauty pageant 2 weeks beforehand. And one of the reasons I said yes is because I knew there was some self-image and body image stuff for me to overcome, and that I was very adamant to show myself and, the world or whoever that beauty doesn't have to be a size 2. You know what I mean? And to some people, maybe it does, but to me, it didn't. And, but that was just one of the pathways. But, my conversation about this really got started when I was with you and I had that awareness, and it was like this dope moment of like, wow, I need to redefine what beauty is for me because I never did. And the women of this world need me to so that they can, and you really were the catalyst for that conversation for me. And so I would love to just, invite you to speak to that concept because you're the one who spoke breath into it for me.
Well, and you know what? I honor you so much, Leanne. Like what's beautiful about all this is that we all get to be a part of the ripple effect, right? So right now in this moment, I feel like this emotion, and part of it is because I'm talking about the journey. And at this moment, I can give thanks for my father. I can give thanks for my ex-husband. I can give thanks for my mother. I can give thanks for all of it, because if I, through my journey, was able to love on you and support you to find your own beauty, and now you're affecting all these beautiful women out there, then, oh my God, it was worth it, because one Leanne is awakened to see her beauty and is taking action on it. So I absolutely adore your resilience, your willingness to look inside, and you're being a leader out there, effectively helping others to really redefine beauty. Because at the end of the day, guys, it has nothing to do with our exterior. It doesn't have anything to do with our sizes. It has nothing to do with that. I can see what society calls a gorgeous woman, and she can have so much pain that she shows up really like a jerk. And that to me is not beautiful. It's not. I can see a woman who by society is not defined as beautiful and has a gorgeous heart and an ability to love and serve and to care about people. And she literally is someone who would take her jacket off for you. That is beauty. That is gorgeous. And you can see it in the face of the human. Start looking past what is visible to the eyes and start paying attention to your soul and what calls you forward to define what beauty is. And this is to me too. You talk about, being in it. Me too. Like I had to really rewrite the story because for me, my body was a source of pain. It always has been. Right. So my dad, I wrote this story that somehow this vehicle named Jessie attracted my father in the wrong way. Crazy, right? But that's what I believe, this thing, my body, and it would get me in trouble. And then in my marriage, it was a constant, my ex getting in fights and, you need to be the trophy wife and you need to look this way, but don't you dare go out in shorts to the grocery store, because then you were all these other horrible things, and so I was so confused, and then I would put on weight to protect myself so I wouldn't get attention. And then he'd be like, babe, you put on a few pounds. You might want to not eat that, and then I'm like, and then I'd lose the weight and then I would get attention and then he would get in fights. And so I literally just wanted to go run face first into a train and wreck this thing because it got me in trouble. And that was the story I wrote. Yeah. And so there's been an unpacking of accepting the beauty that I am as a human being, as a woman on this earth that was created by God. Right. And so from that, even like recently, doing photo shoots and stuff like that, like I'm still like going, all right, I guess I'm going to, if I really want to get out there in the world, I've got to take pictures and do photo shoots. And that's something that was just uncomfortable for me. I'm just like, get over yourself, Jessie. It's not about that. It's about getting out there and really spreading this message because I am after, 100,000 Leannes. That's what I'm after. You know what I mean? Because now you get to go serve these women and every single version of you gets to serve more women. And this is how we change the world. Don't underestimate your power to really step into your beauty, the beauty of your heart, your ability to care, your compassion, right? Your kindness. Kindness saved my life. Yeah. That defines beauty.
Absolutely. Oh, so well said. And even just to stack on what you were talking about earlier, I would even go as far as saying that beauty is an energy. Like if we're talking about joy and acceptance and love as an energy, like beauty is a feeling. It's this energy. You know what I mean? And it's not what people stereotypically look at. You've got to go redefine it for yourself. And that's a process. I love everything you just said. And speaking of, raising this kind of collective consciousness about like, this is how we change the world. I would love for you to take a minute and just share what you're doing right now to change the world, because you're up to something really awesome. And really in one of the things I'll just brag on you for a minute is like, you have just always, every single time I have a challenge, you're always bringing me back to purpose. Anytime I get, transactional in my life, like whether it's like counting, whatever it is, you know what I mean? You always bring me back to purpose. Anytime I think I have a problem, you're like, no, you don't have an X problem. You have a purpose problem. You know what I mean? Like come back to purpose. And like, you're just so good about really the intent that's shaping the content of your life and inspiring other people. And like you said, you're like, this is what I do. I want to create more people that help create that ripple effect. You're here ever since I've met you. You're like, I want to change the world. I want people to be happier and feel more love, So that being said, it's not a surprise that you're up to what you're up to, but I'd love for you to just kind of take a minute and just share the message of what you're experiencing and what you're creating and bringing to life right now.
Sure. I am like thrilled and super excited to really expand and to step into what I'm here to do. I mean, purpose, what's beautiful about purpose is that when you plug into it, it constantly unfolds. It constantly unfolds, right? So I know that I'm here to awaken the spirit and to unleash that human potential and to peel back all the heart armor, right? So that we can all be the essence of who we're here to be. And then how that happens starts to unravel in all kinds of different ways. So, my organization is Fierce Grace Transformation. Fierce Grace is the energies. It's the masculine, it's the feminine, it's the negative, it's the positive, it's the up, it's the down. It's the frequency that we choose and get to live in, right? And it's not the absence of one, it's the flow of both. And how do we find that beyond all of the armor that we've built so that we can literally be limitless? Because I don't believe that there's limitation at all to the human being. The only limitation is the belief of one. And so how do we get to that space? So I have 8-week program that I offer. But one of the greatest that I love, and Leanne, that's the amazing part that you got to be a part of, is events.
Yeah.
I know right now our world is kind of in a cray-cray situation, but honestly, it doesn't matter to me. It's totally irrelevant, and I really don't care. Mm-hmm. I am out to make more transformational events because I believe people are hungering for a different conversation. They're hungering for something to just get them out of this prison that they're in, and I believe the right people will come. So I have a program that allows you to get the foundational pieces of understanding who you are and why you're here, and how to unpack anything that's limiting you from being your divine, beautiful self, empowered to do whatever you want in life, and events that you're able to come to and actually have an experience about what that looks like, because there's nothing like being fully there. And what's great is I have a beautiful family of my 3 kids are all like activated musicians and transformational coaches. So we get to do it together. And so we have, music, we have so many things that help crack that armor and help you really step into your beauty and your divine self. Yeah. And then the other part that's kind of a passion project, which I'm really excited about, because this was divinely given, guys. Like, what can I tell you? I've gone through a lot of different work and a lot of ceremony and a lot of connection to God and universe, and work with shamans, whatever. And after I had gone to this ceremony, the day after, I was in meditation, and this thing felt like it just filled me up. And I was told at a prior ceremony a long time ago that you're here to spread a blanket of love over the world. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so the vision that I saw was me ascending, I don't know, into the sky, into heaven, I don't know. And I'm literally taking this blanket of love and I'm spreading it over the world. Now, what was happening in the world is people were like fighting and they were beating each other up. And as this blanket landed on them, they like snapped out of it. And they're like, whoa, I'm sorry. I don't want to hurt you. I don't know what happened. It was like they were snapping out of this hypnosis. And from that, they were coming back to the benevolence that we really are as human beings. And they didn't want to fight. And so it was a beautiful vision. But I walked away from that going, well, how the frick do I do that? And so what I anchored, because I didn't have specifics, was I'm just going to love as much as I can. So I do that through my coaching. I do that through my programs. I do that through the events, but I knew there was more. And so what was given, now fast forward a couple of years, and now I have this total like given thing where my pen was just writing and it said, spread bold love. Right? And what is the human being? And so I made up a word. It's called humessence. And it's really about our human essence, which is derived of 5 things: purity, kindness, benevolence, innocence, and sovereignty. Okay. When we really connect to those 5 things, we find our divinity and our beauty. So what came through was that if you can imagine looking, when you buy a t-shirt at a concert, you're buying a t-shirt because you want to represent that band, because you love their music, you love their style. Why do you buy a t-shirt that says anything, right? It's because you want to be a representative of what that says. When somebody wears something like, kindness is my jam, right? Or spiritual warrior, whatever. It does something to us that says, oh, I want to know that, right? Or if you were driving down the road and what if you saw light warriors on the back of someone's car instead of Range Rover, right? It makes you curious. Oh, I want to know a little bit more about that person. So what it's doing is it's creating that coherence that I talked about earlier. It's creating an expansion in your heart. You're now fluid. In that expansion, you're rewiring the autonomic nervous system. You're coming out of fight or flight, and you're in a space where wisdom drops in, providence comes in. You get ideas you didn't know you had, and you get empowered. That is the frequency of love. That is who we are. We are born in love. We are taught to hate, right? And so we want to come back to that love. So what developed was this organization called Light Warriors Inc. And in that, it's about a pay it forward concept. I call it love it forward, because we're loving, right? The gift of giving. So it's a t-shirt apparel company, and it's going to have, kindness matters, or you're amazing, or whatever it is. We're going to just put some great things that says that you get to gift to somebody in the world, right? Whoever you love. And when you gift the gift, you will get a notification when your person receives their gift, and that ding on your phone is going to drip dopamine, which is that feel-good chemical in your brain. It's going to activate your heart going, oh, my person got their gift. Let me see. And it's going to tell you where it is in the world. So if I give a gift to a family member in Peru, you'll get a notification because you've been gifting it forward of where the t-shirt is now, right? So each person gets a notification every single time it's paid forward. Okay. So the outcome is to get to, you'll be, number 400 of 1111. We want to get to 1111 people, right? 1,111 people. From that, if you're number 400, 399 people are going to get a notification that says, Leanne got her gift. Where is she in the world? And you actually start to see the effects of the difference you get to make, because now 399 people, their hearts are going to be activated. They're going to get a dopamine hit because they know somebody's receiving a love it forward gift. And you get to see where it now is in the world, and you get to see the effects of your action of giving and how the frequencies being spread over our globe. And this is how we can effectively make change in the world. This is how I get to spread a veil of love over the world. And so it's a love it forward. When we get to 10 cycles of 1111, we come together and we have a global ceremony of 11,110 people coming together who actually activated the gift of giving and changed the frequency of our planet. Because right now there's a lot of density, a lot of density. It needs the light warriors of the world, the love warriors of the world, to be able to activate our heart's desire to serve. So it's Spread Bold Love is the name of it. And I'm just so thrilled. Every time I talk about it, I get amped up because it was God-given. I even wrote a song. I don't write music. My kids are musicians. I am not. And they're working on that part. But that's really what I'm up to.
That is so great. That is so great. Yeah, it's such a dense time in this world, really giving that boost of energy and spreading the love and putting that blanket of love on the world, as you say. So we'll definitely link all of that for everybody listening in the show notes so they can find you. Before we wrap, what's on your heart that you would love these gals to hear? The audience of Stressless Eating really, breaking out of that food and body and that shame prison and that emotional home of not good enough and not worthy. What would you say to anybody who's listening right now, just what's on your heart for them?
I think the biggest invitation I would give to you all is to throw away the gavel. Judge in your head that's judging anything about you other than divine perfection, other than magnificence. If you're alive today, you have navigated some stuff. Mm-hmm. Remember the champion in the arena. Honor her as the hero of the story and fall back in love. Fall back in love. And I love your definition of beauty and feeling. There's a doctor called Dr. Bush. He's an amazing guy. And he said that he got this from a different person, but he said, love is not the answer. The answer is beauty. See the beauty and you will feel the love. So see the beauty, look for the beauty in everything. I still have to talk to myself kindly in the mirror. Make it a practice. The minute you want to say something, my daughter's one of my greatest teachers. When I'm there poking at things I don't like, she's like, Mom, your daughter's listening. I'm like, oh, right? So make it a practice. See the beauty in yourself. Mm-hmm. See the beauty in your smile and your divine heart, your beautiful, kind heart. And you will start to fall in love with what was created in love. Mm-hmm. And then you will be able to love humanity on a whole different level.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. That was so amazing. Just really grateful that you were here to share your wisdom, your truth, and your journey, just having the courage to share with us all. And just so many different nuggets of wisdom on this episode. We're really glad that you could join us. Thanks for being here.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, Leanne. And thank you for stepping out there and being a leader out there, helping all these women, because boy, do we need the feminine back. So I honor you so much for your courage and your power to step out there. So it's been my honor to join you and to be able to address, all the beautiful souls that you called.
Thank you for saying that. And thank you for your contribution to my journey, because it's being paid forward through this platform. So, so good. Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. We will see you on the next episode, ladies. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you like what you heard and you're interested in breaking out of your own food, body, and diet prison, here's what I want you to do next. Head on over to stresslesseating.com. That's stresslesseating.com and sign up to watch the Stressless Eating webinar, where I'll walk you through the exact 5-step game plan my female clients use to conquer emotional eating, self-sabotage, and finally heal themselves from the restrictive all-or-nothing diet mentality for good, but without obsessing or spending years in therapy to address it. I've laid it all out for you there in 5 easy steps. Remember, healing your relationship with food and your body does not happen by itself. You need expert guidance to make it happen, and we've helped clients all over the world take back their power from the food and find true and lasting freedom while enjoying life and warm chocolate chip cookies along the way. To see if we can help you do the same, head on over to stresslesseating.com. I'm Leanne Ellington, and I'll see you next time.